Welcome back to Games Revealed. I'm James Brink, and we are one community. And today I want to talk about something that was a joke and now is not a joke, but it's kind of both, it seems like. And I'm going to do something a little unconventional. I'll go off the beaten path, and we're going to do a little bit of a react to a video on the Asus ROG Ally and how it was not a lie, but is a real device, which, if you saw my last video, I was expecting them to come out with a device like this. I wasn't expecting it to not happen, but I do think this was just a fun marketing ploy from Asus. And so let's get into that. We're going to talk about this throughout this whole video, and this will be a fun video, a little different, and I think you guys will like it. But before we get into it, make sure to like, subscribe, bash that bell with your crowbar. Now, let's get into some reacting, watching, whatever it is. We got Dave 2D here. He's awesome. If you have not watched his stuff, he simplifies things down. He shows it in hand. I love his stuff. So let's get into it.
Has a very tough time because this is a handheld gaming PC and it only costs $400. And a bunch of companies have tried, right? They've come out with devices that have better hardware than the Steam Deck, but they've never had a compelling price. But recently, Asus came into the studio and they said, we understand that this is a very competitive segment. We understand that everyone loves...
I mean, it's a compound, but yeah, we'll call it a studio. And it is a cool studio.
That $400 price point of the Steam Deck. But we have something that's even better. The ROG Ally, Asus's new handheld gaming PC. So I've spent a little over a week with this device, and it is still just an early engineering sample, but I think they got a shot. Like, I think this product does so much right, it just makes for a way better gaming experience than the Steam Deck. Let's start off with performance. So Asus claims that this has double the performance of the Steam Deck, like literally 2x. And I can't divulge into frame rate and stuff. Like, I just took a little peek around and they told me I can't share it, but this is a brand new chip from AMD. It's hot off their press. It's a custom 4nm APU, Zen 4, RDNA 3. Now, I don't know the naming and the kind of clock rate on this thing, but from what I've seen, I think the claims are legit. Now, arguably even more important than performance, I guess it complements performance.
I'm going to make a hot take right now. Some of you might not like this. Valve needs to get a little bit in gear. They need to come out with a Steam Deck 2 that matches this performance. It doesn't have to be at the same time Asus comes out with it, but we have not seen the Steam Deck perform well with a lot of AAA titles this year. Is it meant to be a AAA player? Not necessarily. Is this Asus device going to be? Yes, it is. If I'm going to be picking between two devices, later on in the video, Dave will talk about how they're making this a competitively priced device. I have a feeling they're going to make up their money through accessories and through their eGPU and all that, because I'm sure that thing's pricey and it's extra. But if they can get, let's say, $800 for this thing, it's twice as powerful, and I can play all my games no matter what, I'm probably going to choose the Asus device. I hate to say it, but that's the one I would recommend to you guys at the end of the day. No hassle. That's the biggest problem with the Steam Deck. Sometimes there's hassle. We're seeing stuff with The Last of Us. We're seeing stuff with Resident Evil. Resident Evil played decently when it came out, but if you don't have to say that, where it just plays and you're getting 40, 50 frames per second on medium, and that looks good on a 1080 screen, you should choose the Asus one. That being said, the trackpads on the Steam Deck are awesome. There's a couple other things that are awesome on the Steam Deck, and SteamOS is amazing. But if Valve wants to continually perpetuate their ecosystem and their device, I do think that they're going to have to come out with a newer device sooner than later. They are working on an APU with AMD, and I have a feeling that it is the same type of APU that Asus has been working on. The same specs, the Little Phoenix, the tech for that, essentially the 8000 series comes out later this year. And so we could see a new Steam Deck beginning of next year. I would actually kind of hope so, like maybe a 2-year anniversary, Steam Deck 2 comes out. With this one, I could see it coming out at the end of this year, maybe sometime next year. Earliest will be the end of this year, especially since Dave talks about this being early prototype. But the APU, 100%, sounds like it's going to be on the same level as the Little Phoenix. Rumored to be about 50% faster than Steam Deck, but we're seeing numbers from the 7000 series and even the 6000 series with the 6800U. 6800U's are already about 20 to 50% faster, I should say. Then, depending on the game, of course. than the Steam Deck. And the Steam Deck has optimizations in it. So if Steam OS was on that same device, it would probably be 50% faster than the Steam Deck. It being about double the performance of the Steam Deck, and it comes out about 2 years after that tracks, honestly. Let's watch a little bit more.
Is the screen. So this screen is a 7-inch screen, same size, I guess, as the screen on the Steam Deck, but it's a way better screen. So this is a higher res screen than the Steam Deck. It's 1080p instead of 800p.
So yeah, 120 hertz. Oh God, that's amazing. Like the nits, yeah, and then it has higher brightness. It's a 1080 instead of the 800. It's able to play at those levels because it has twice the performance. Imagine this thing with a Steam OS, that is. Oh yeah, 16:9 is a more manageable aspect ratio. I do like the 16:10 on the deck. I've come to love that though.
It's significantly brighter, has way better colors, but the greatest thing, the display on the ROG Ally goes up to 120 hertz. It is such a different gaming experience when you're playing stuff with fluid visuals. See, last year when I reviewed the Steam Deck, like this was impressive to me at the time to be able to get 50 or 60 frames per second. But to be able to get that, you had to be in 800p, and for a lot of games, you had to be in low graphic settings. But on the ROG Ally, games will comfortably hit way higher frame rates while on higher graphic settings. And for a lot of PC games, it's a very different game experience with...
Okay, I have to comment. That POV on that, like, he didn't look like he was hitting anything. I haven't played Warhammer 40k Dark Tide yet, but it looks fun.
Those higher frame rates. I think this screen is awesome. It's just that you need really good hardware to be able to take advantage of it. Like, you need a strong enough APU to allow the screen to flex. But there's one feature that legitimately blew me away about the Ally. It's the fan noise. So this has an incredibly quiet fan system. It almost doesn't even make sense. So on the Steam Deck, not that this...
It does make sense, and you'll see why. And to me, it 100% makes sense.
This has like a crazy loud fan system, but if you're playing a demanding game, you can absolutely hear it going. And when you have loud fans, you have to crank up the speakers to be able to hear them over the fans, right? On the Ally, I legitimately thought that there was something wrong with this device. I had a fairly demanding game running, and I couldn't hear the fans at all. I had to stick my ears right up to the top of the device, and I was like, oh yeah, they're running. It's that quiet. So I've measured the Steam Deck to be around 37 decibels on load. On the Ally, it's 20 decibels. It's a huge drop. And the thing to keep in mind is that decibels is a logarithmic measurement, right? It's not a linear one. So if you drop by if you lower it by 10 decibels, that is a perceived reduction in volume by half. It's half as loud when you go just 10 decibels. This is 16 or 17 decibels lower. It's a huge advantage on the Ally. It's also a smaller...
So you can still hear the Ally, but you'll notice there's two things. It has two fans in it, in the Ally. The Steam Deck has one fan. So it's going to have to suck in a lot more air to cool down the system, as opposed to a two-fan system, where it can do it a little bit more spread out and easier.
And lighter and flatter product compared to the Steam Deck. It still has a 7-inch screen, but I like that it's the more standard 16:9 aspect ratio instead of the 16:10. Like, I think a lot of people that played Steam games on the Steam Deck, like, it would just be the black bars, right? Not every game can do 16:10, so yeah. I see the complaints once in a while. It doesn't bother me too much, but you won't have any of those issues with a 16:9 aspect ratio. Actually, now that I think about it, on the Ally, you do get a slightly larger displayed image because of the aspect ratio on games. Now, the controls feel noticeably different on the Ally than the Steam Deck. Like,
I will call this out. So I did a video with the reveal video of the Asus Ally. I noticed that almost everyone that was playing the Ally, they would move the controller and nothing would happen. So I was like, oh yeah, of course. The video itself was kind of more of a joke in some ways, even though it was amazing marketing. I thought it was a great video.
The buttons are nice and big. I love the way they feel. The sticks feel great. They're responsive and accurate. And the D-pad as well. There's 2 shoulder buttons on each side, but only 1 pair of back buttons. And there's a series of UI controlling buttons closer towards the center of the screen. Now, in terms of the layout and like the ergonomics of it, I like the way that it feels on the Ally, but I don't think I've spent enough time on it to really tell if I have a preference. Like, I've spent so much time on the Steam Deck that this just feels so familiar to me. On the Ally, the button and stick layout is kind of Xbox-like, but it sits very differently in your hands because it's so much flatter. There's no touchpad like we've seen on the Steam Deck. Like on the left and right here, they have those kind of capacitive almost mouse replacements. I've always liked them. I've seen the argument being made that they'll never replace a mouse. Like, you can't play a mouse-based game using just these.
I don't play mouse-based games playing with the trackpads. I like the trackpads for doing desktop and some other stuff, and I do think they're two different devices. It really depends. Like, if you're mainly gaming on the go, the Asus might actually be the better device in the long run. We'll see, though. If you want an all-around PC replacement, the Steam Deck's pretty awesome.
Very effectively. There's merit to that maybe, but I just think they add a lot of utility to the inputs. This doesn't have them. And it's also missing the hump on the back. Like, it is a flatter device on the Ally, but these big humps on the back, they give this kind of super ergonomic grip to the product, to the Steam Deck, and this does not have that. The speakers are decent, but it's early software, so I'm not going to comment too much on the product there. The software, so again, very early stages of their software, but I like it. Like, I like what I'm seeing. So it's a kind of custom version of their Armory Crate. It has a game launcher, FPS counter, FPS limiter, performance mode controls, RGB lighting controls. They're definitely on the right track, but this software is clutch. Like, they have to nail this when it ships, because this is running Windows 11, right? This isn't running a custom OS like the Steam Deck is. This is running Windows 11, which is great for customizability and freedom. Like, you can play all the games. It doesn't matter if you're playing like Battle.net, Epic, Steam, Xbox Game Pass, like, all of it is available on this device, but you lose that kind of super intuitive UI that SteamOS delivers. Up top, you got
But you could have this Steam client auto launch into big picture mode, and it's very similar to the SteamOS. I mean, it's the same UI, just a couple of differences, right? We'll see how the software on Asus is, because like Ioneo's software is garbage. I really don't like it. I've heard it's gotten better technically, but I don't know. I've updated my Ioneo Air and I do not like it.
a headphone jack, a fast micro SD, your volume controls, fingerprint sensor, as well as a connection port to Asus's external GPU product, the XG Mobile.
It is unfortunate that it's a proprietary system, but at least it's doable. At least there's an option. The Steam Deck doesn't have USB 4, which is one of my biggest gripes, that it needs USB 4. At least this has USB 4, and on top of it, an additional connector to where you just connect it up and you have a super PC. Honestly, I would be tempted to just roll with this as my main PC for a while.
So you can dock this and connect it up to their external GPU, and you now have a super powerful console. Part of that XG Mobile connection...
Okay, it says it supports up to a 4090 in the enclosure, meaning you can just add, I guess, multiple GPUs. Like, it's essentially, you can add the GPUs in. It's not built in.
Is a USB-C port, and it's the only USB-C port on this device. So you use it for charging or as a display out, and they do include a 65-watt charging adapter.
Which is unfortunate that there's just one USB, but at least it's USB 4, as opposed to what the Steam Deck has. The Steam Deck's a very limited device compared to some of these other ones. It's a less expensive one, but it's not because of that. It doesn't have USB 4 because it's a less expensive device. It doesn't have USB 4 because it is an older architecture. It was before USB 4.
Battery size and battery life, I don't know yet. Like, they told me this was such early hardware, there's no point even testing that stuff. But I imagine in terms of battery life, it'd be very similar to a Steam Deck in terms of just like wattage consumption. I did open it up and poked around.
It'll probably be
so
higher.
Much cool stuff going on in there. Like, I can't wait for the retail version of this to.
Yeah, you got two batteries going on here. So the battery of the Steam Deck is about maybe, I would say this one's about a third to 2/3 larger than the Steam Deck. They definitely got to put it in there in such a way. It definitely looks repairable. It looks decent. It has a 2230 NVMe, which that's unfortunate. This is an early prototype, so.
Come out just so I can test it properly. Like, the thermal system seems really well designed. It sucks in air from the back, like, and it just kind of cools your hand in the process, and then it vents it out the top of the device. The SSD looks very easy to replace, and same with the sticks, like the joysticks. If you ever need to swap those out for whatever reason, it seems very simple to get in there. Now, there's one last thing I want to mention, and I think it's like potentially the most important thing about this product. So it's Asus, and it's a global release. So unlike any other kind of high-end game...
I mean, depending on where you live, it's not that important. If you live in America and it comes out in America, then it's important. Does this perform well? Does this do what you want it to do? And with these types of devices, the reason I compare the Steam Deck to the Switch, when you're going on a trip, you're not going to carry both typically. You're going to have one device. And so which one are you going to go for? Are you going to buy 3 different gaming devices that can almost all do the same thing? For me, where I'm an enthusiast and I do this on YouTube, yeah, I'll have multiple devices. For an average person, it matters when you go to make the choice on what you buy. This being globally available is a big deal, though.
Gaming handheld I've ever reviewed or seen. This is gonna be around the world everywhere. You don't need some like Kickstarter to get it or Indiegogo or like have to import it. Like it's just gonna be available everywhere, including Best Buy. Now, here's the thing about this.
The Best Buy email capture is what I like. Okay, there's no way this can be faked. Why would Best Buy go along with an April Fool's joke? So for me, I assumed it was an I assumed it wasn't in the beginning, and then I got evidence that pointed towards it being an April Fool's joke, and now I'm back onto that. Obviously, we saw it. Kind of gimmicky marketing launch, but honestly, I liked it a lot.
So Best Buy, they don't do volume purchases like this unless they think that this thing is gonna sell. Now, I asked Asus multiple times about the price of this product, and they wouldn't give it to me. And I think this product, like the success of the Ally, hinges so heavily on its price tag. Because if this thing is super expensive, no one's gonna buy it, right? And I think if it's priced well, it's such a massive success. Like the way I see it is this: like if this thing can hit, I don't think it's gonna be $400. It can't.
No.
Like you can't match the price of the Steam Deck. I wouldn't be surprised if Valve loses money on each Steam Deck still at that $400 price point, because they're making the revenue back on their sales, right? Did you know that Valve gets 30% of every game they sell? I never realized that until like a couple years ago. It was like 30%. It's so much.
It's a lot.
Obviously, Asus can't do that. But I think if this thing hits like 600, 650, like all the features you get for this thing,
I will say the price difference between the $400 and the $650 Steam Deck is they're making money off the $650 one. If they're not making any money off the $400 one, they're making money off the $650 one. With the way the Steam Deck is priced out, I wouldn't be surprised if they are actually making a little bit of money, especially since they did a 10% discount recently. I think Valve is making money on the Steam Deck. Not much, and not enough to warrant a business like Valve to go into it. It wouldn't be much in the way of, it's just better to just continue doing what they're doing on Steam. They're making a lot more money than anything that the Steam Deck would make. The Steam Deck drives sales, though, and they're making tons of money off sales with the Steam Deck. Device like this, to get into a competitive range, just needs to be below $1,000, and it's not going to hit 400 like Dave says. It's probably going to be, I'm assuming, between $600 to $800. It probably will be maybe 2 or 3 different SKUs on this. So
I think that'd be a winner. I think that'd be a huge W for it. I don't know. I don't know the price, but they told me, the one thing they told me, very competitive pricing is what I've been told. Okay.
Yeah. I honestly really do think Asus, they have laptops that are under $1,000 that are APU based. They can hit the price range on this. And I am curious to see when they come out with this device, for how much, what the actual specs and all that, because this is a prototype. But with what I'm seeing with the new generation of AMD APUs, I do think it's going to be double the speed of Steam Deck. And it's all going to depend on the game you play, obviously, but I do think we're going to see some good things from this. The biggest things for me that I'm a little apprehensive of is I've become accustomed to the way the Steam Deck feels in my hand, and also the trackpads. But if I'm getting double the performance, I'm not having to worry about tweaking games as much, and they just kind of work out of the box, like The Last of Us, which I know that's a VRAM issue, a lot of it, and some of that will be wrapped up probably within the next few weeks of like being fixed, more or less. When I sit down and game, I don't want to necessarily think it through. I think it's a little silly sometimes that every time a game comes out, everyone scrambles to get the right settings to make it look good on the deck. It's getting the right settings to just get it to run on the deck, and that is a very telling thing for me, and I'm going to do a lot more content in the future on that and other things on the Steam Deck. I'm excited for the Steam Deck. I think the Steam Deck is going to continue to be the king this year. But at the end of the year, once we get into next year, I do think Valve is going to have to do something to keep a hold of that crown, because the Steam Deck is not going to be a multi-year device past this year in the sense of being competitive with playing AAA games that are coming out. I'm not saying that portable devices are meant to play AAA games, but that's going to be the new standard in the next year. 2024 is going to be the year where any device, as long as you buy it that year, any device that comes out is going to be able to play AAA titles at a pretty decent visual level, I think, and that's going to be kind of a little bit more of the norm as people will become more and more portable. With that, I thought it was kind of funny that I didn't think this was going to be a joke, like the Asus thing. It just looked too real, and then it ended up being not really a joke, but people said it was a joke from Asus Twitter stuff, and then it became not a joke. Even in my video, I was expecting this to be a device eventually. It just was, the prototype that people had in hand was a prototype. There was just no way around that. So at the end of the day, this was a fun saga. We can kind of close the book until we get more information on it. Maybe I'll get a device in hand. Let me know in the comments below what you guys think of this. Are you excited? Do you think this is going to be something that's going to be good for the ecosystem? I think it's going to hurt Ioneo and some of these other devices sales-wise, as this is a global launch. It's just you can get it in your hands. You can go to Best Buy and pick it up. I do think it's going to hurt them. What do you guys think? Are you going to get something like this over the Steam Deck, or what do you think the pros and cons are between the two? Curious what you guys think. And also check out the description below. They will have all the goodies in there that I always have, including sales and all that. So thank you guys for watching. Catch my other videos. I'll catch you guys next time. Peace out. Later. Also, let me know. Did you like this format? I like doing reacts. It's fun to sit here and watch something and chat about it and expound on my thoughts and opinions on things. So peace out.